What does it say about the president that he was totally fine with them 6 months ago?
Well, and they were totally fine with him.
What does it say?
Look, he attracted a lot of people. And some of the people that he attracted, like, that have those views, I completely and totally disagree with. And he has been quite clear about his views on these issues. And he has led the party away from those views. And that's frankly one of the reasons they're not in it anymore.
He spoke on the phone with Tucker Carlson about 6 weeks ago.
What did he say? What did he say about him last week?
But why? I mean, look, you're arguing to me that they are repulsive people who are anti-Semitic. The president of the United States is on the phone with them.
He disavowed them last week.
I'm just saying.
Welcome back to the channel, guys. Here we have David Hogg and Scott Jennings going head-to-head on CNN over whether Democrats should welcome MAGA defectors like Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I want to give you my honest read on what unfolds here, because underneath the question of whether Marjorie gets a seat at the table, what this conversation is really about is accountability and whether in American politics it even exists anymore. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know where you stand on this topic. All right, let's get into it.
Since the topic is adopting the kooks that defected from MAGA and now are considering the Democratic Party, I just would warn the Democratic Party because, to Scott's point, I mean, these are conspiracy theorists who believe that there's a Jewish cabal controlling the country, pulling the puppet strings, and that are going to destroy America.
Tonight, Ilhan Omar is applauding MAGA stars Candace Owens and Marjorie Taylor Greene for breaking with Donald Trump and expressing their buyer's remorse.
The thing that has been very fascinating, especially about Marjorie and Candace, is that they are not just coming out like the other ones that you'd mentioned, where they're saying this action is wrong, right? They're saying, I am done with you. We should give them credit for that.
So if somebody is ready to take that step and at least talk to us and maybe do something differently, the message cannot be, I told you so. The message has to be, welcome aboard. What else can we do together?
Ilhan Omar is saying, give them credit. Pete Buttigieg is saying, let's hold hands and say, what can we do together? Do you think that's the right move?
So look, I have to address something first, which is that when I was, I've had a personal interaction with Marjorie Taylor Greene. When I was 18 after the shooting at my high school, when I was lobbying members of Congress, my fellow activists in March for Our Lives, Marjorie Taylor Greene, before she was a member, started chasing me around saying that the shooting at my high school didn't happen, that I was a crisis actor, that I was paid by the government to do all these just horrible things that are completely false. And at the same time, what those conversations that they're talking about remind me of is my own evolution as an activist. In terms of when I was in college, I didn't go to college to just be surrounded by a bunch of liberals necessarily. I know that's hard for you guys to believe, but it's true. That's why I joined the shooting club when I was in college. And as you can imagine, Scott, I was not very popular there. But it's important to talk to people who disagree with us, because ultimately, even though we're Democrats and Republicans, we have to find what little overlap there is that we can move forward on. And look, we can speculate all we want on her intentions and why she's doing this ultimately. But from my perspective, I'm willing to take that first step and have that conversation with her. And I would challenge her to this too. If she wants to come on your show and talk to me directly about why she's changed her mind, I'm happy to do that and have that conversation. And I would challenge her to do that and prove to us why she actually is authentic and changing, and that this is not just another opportunistic political opportunity like it was when she chased me after the shooting at my high school. But I'm willing to give her a small chance to have that conversation. But it's important to note too, this is not just a Marjorie Taylor Greene phenomenon. We're seeing Tucker Carlson. We're seeing people across the board defect increasingly from Trump.
Okay. What do all those people have in? What do all those people have in common, by the way?
Trump.
What is it they all have in common?
And now he doesn't.
When I hear Ilhan Omar, you know what I hear? How do you do, fellow anti-Semites? That's what I hear.
Yeah, that's what's getting the elephant in the room.
This is about. There is a thread here, and it's so transparently obvious. And I'll be honest. I think what she did to you is abhorrent. She was a clown then. She's a clown now. This entire thing for her is political. Trump didn't want to back her in a statewide race in Georgia, and she's a conspiracy theorist then, and she's a conspiracy theorist now.
Okay, let's stop right there. David Hogg did not open with a policy argument. He opened with something way harder to dismiss than that. He opened with the truth. He was 18 years old, fresh off watching classmates get murdered at his high school, lobbying Congress, and Marjorie Taylor Greene chased him down and told him the shooting didn't happen, that he was a crisis actor, that he was paid. And even after all of that, he sat in this chair and said he's willing to give her a conversation if she proves she's changed. Let that sit for a second. That is not weakness. That is a man making a calculated, mature offer and quietly daring her to take it. And here is what that sets up, because Scott Jennings is about to have to respond to all of it, and watch how he handles it.
I would caution you.
I don't think Joe Rogan's an anti-Semite. I don't think Andrew Schultz is an anti-Semite. I don't think Eric Erickson is an anti-Semite.
No.
I think there's a lot of people around the country whose names we don't know who were
We're talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson.
You're bringing other people.
But just one second.
What do all of them have in common?
Even if you say that the only thing that is important about those three individuals in particular is that they're anti-Semitic, what does it say about the president that he was totally fine with them 6 months ago?
Well, and they were totally fine with him.
What does it say?
Look, he attracted a lot of people, and some of the people that he attracted, like, that have those views, I completely and totally disagree with. And he has been quite clear about his views on these issues, and he has led the party away from those views, and that's frankly one of the reasons they're not in it anymore.
He spoke on the phone with Tucker Carlson about 6 weeks ago.
What did he say? What did he say about him last week?
But why? I mean, look, you're arguing to me that they are repulsive people who are anti-Semitic. The president of the United States is on the phone with them, and
he disavowed them last week.
I'm just saying.
That you're talking
but let's go back to what David said, because I think it's important. I mean, is there a way to work with a Marjorie Taylor Greene, or I mean, Candace Owens? Candace Owens, really? Is that really what Democrats are going to be doing?
Marjorie Taylor Greene, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, and others are responsible for creating the personality that we are dealing with in the White House today and all of the issues that come along. I believe the best indicator of future performance is to look at past performance. Marjorie Taylor Greene hasn't had any great Jesus moment. We've been talking a lot about him. Let me bring him to the table. She hasn't had some great Jesus moment. This is all about her. What attention would Marjorie Taylor Greene be getting today if she had not turned so fully against the president? I'm not a believer. Now, for Ilhan Omar, thank you. I believe she has the best intentions, but I'm not ready to turn my back and invite Marjorie Taylor Greene to any table that I'm seated.
And there it is. David asked the question Scott had no answer for. Even if you say the only thing important about these three individuals is that they're anti-Semitic, what does it say about the president that he was totally fine with them 6 months ago? And Scott Jennings, the guy brought onto this panel specifically to carry the conservative argument, his response was, he attracted a lot of people. That's it. That's the whole answer. He attracted a lot of people. You cannot defend years of platforming and endorsements and rally appearances with, he attracted a lot of people. That is not a defense. That is a shrug dressed up as a sentence. He just destroyed his own point without David even having to push harder. And what comes next is where Anna Navarro walks in and names what everyone else was dancing around, the actual origin story of this entire mess.
Let's remember what the issue was that drove a wedge between Donald Trump and some of his biggest supportive Republican women, like Nancy Mace, like Lauren Boebert, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, and it was the Epstein files. And as much as I disagree with them, some of them are still in Congress on so many things. I do give them credit for not having bent the knee when he brought Lauren Boebert into the Situation Room and tried to bully her into not voting for the release of the files. Now, what I would say to Ilhan Omar, what I would say to Pete Buttigieg, as somebody who broke with my party in 2015, the minute the guy came down the escalator and started talking about Mexicans and immigrants, is that it is hard. Pete Buttigieg is right. When you've been part of a party your entire life, when your circles, your social circles, your family circles, your professional circles are made up in that party, it is very hard to make that break. But I don't think Democrats have to say, come in, the water is warm, because it is a personal decision. It is not one that is led by people being your cheerleaders. You do it because you feel uncomfortable with the guy who's leading the party, not because you have a cheering section telling you to jump into the pool.
And just quickly, I mean, the polling suggests that there is erosion, despite the MAGA number that Trump likes to tout. White non-college educated graduates, that's Trump's base. 63% supported him in 2025, February of last year. 49% support him now in April 2026.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, the way that this war has been conducted is not universally popular among every single MAGA voter, among every single Republican. But since the topic is adopting the kooks that defected from MAGA and now are considering the Democratic Party, I just would warn the Democratic Party, because to Scott's point, I mean, these are conspiracy theorists who believe that there's a Jewish cabal controlling the country, pulling the puppet strings, and that are going to destroy America. So if that's the unholy alliance that
these
a lot of
folks were campaigning with Trump and for Trump all over the country.
They have not changed.
They were the poster child for
the same people.
Conspiracy theorists.
There's also, I mean, we didn't even mention Megyn Kelly. I mean, but again, the day before the 2024 election, she was in a closing argument campaign rally with President Trump. I mean, the idea that suddenly they're kooks and the Republican Party is happy to be rid of them is
Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene barnstormed the country on behalf of Donald Trump.
And it really also kicked off after the Epstein files, to your point.
Here is the single thing this exchange proved that nobody on that panel can take back. You cannot spend years building someone up, handing them a microphone, filling their bank account with donor money, putting them on stages at your rallies, and then the second they become a liability, turn to the camera and call them a kook. That's not how any of this works. Scott Jennings tried to run that play in real time, and David caught him doing it, because Scott's own argument, his own words, were that these people are anti-Semitic conspiracy theorists. Fine, but David did not let him stop there. He said the President of the United States was on the phone with Tucker Carlson 6 weeks ago. He said these same people were totally fine with Trump 6 months ago, and Scott's only move was to pivot and say he disavowed them last week. Last week. Think about what that actually means for a second. You want credit for last week when we have years of tape? You cannot say that and then say this. Pick one. And that right there is the whole ball game. The right spent years telling us that Marjorie Taylor Greene was a patriot, that Candace Owens was a bold truth teller, that Tucker Carlson was the only guy brave enough to ask real questions. They were on the main stage. They were not fringe. Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene literally barnstormed the country together on behalf of Donald Trump. They had the endorsements, the rallies, the donor lists, the Fox News appearances, and now that the Epstein files became an issue, now that statewide races became a reality check, now that the poll numbers are moving, suddenly these people are kooks the party is happy to be rid of? We were all watching. We remember. You do not get to quietly disappear the receipts. And zoom out for a second, because what this moment reveals is something every American is living through right now, regardless of which way they vote. The polling they cited in this segment, white non-college educated voters, the absolute core of Trump's base, dropped from 63% support in February of last year down to 49% in April 2026. That is not erosion.
That is a collapse. And what that number tells you is why this conversation is even happening. Marjorie Taylor Greene is not leaving Trump because she found wisdom or grew a conscience. She is leaving because she read the same numbers everyone else is reading, and she does not want to go down with the ship. These are not defectors. These are lifeboats. And I'll give Anna Navarro that one, because she said something that I think both sides need to hear. She talked about making the break from her own party back in 2015, the moment Trump came down that escalator and started talking about Mexicans and immigrants. And her point was real. When your whole life, your family, your friends, your career, your entire social identity is wrapped up inside one political party, leaving is genuinely hard. That is not nothing. I respect the courage it takes to break with your tribe. But here is the thing. Respecting how hard it is to leave is not the same as throwing a welcome parade. You do not get a standing ovation for doing what you should have done years ago. You get a chance to prove it. And that is exactly what David Hogg said. Prove it. Come on the show, say it to my face. Show me why this is not just another opportunistic pivot. That is the right call. The stronger argument in this exchange belonged to David Hogg, and I say that not because he is more likable or because his personal story is powerful, though it is. I say it because he was the only person at that table who had both the moral standing and the logical receipts. He was not trading in vague points about party strategy. He was saying, here is what she did, here is what it cost me, here is the bar she has to clear, and here is my offer. That is a complete argument. Scott Jennings never got close to answering it. He attracted a lot of people is not a counterargument. It's a forfeit with a suit on. The McCarthy comparison holds, too, by the way. The 1950s playbook is exactly this. Ride the wave, get the power, and the moment the exposure comes, quietly pretend you were always skeptical. We have seen this before. We know how it ends. The people who built the wave do not get to escape the consequences of the crash by simply stepping aside. So here's the question I want to leave you with, and this one is a real yes or no. If Marjorie Taylor Greene came on a Democratic platform tomorrow, denounced everything she spent the last decade saying, and showed polling receipts that she could actually win suburban voters, should Democrats take that deal? Or is some damage too permanent to forgive, no matter what the political math?